How did I learn how to push sandpaper, use a sanding block, do body work, get a perfectly flat surface, make paint jobs look real good? Well, here's a history lesson. I spent about 15 years of my life in the marine industry doing new product development. What you see right here is what we call a master plug, and that's a boat mold hanging over it. This is the same mold hanging on the chain hoist. Now this master plug right here that looks like a boat mold turned up, a boat hull turned upside down, I built that from scratch. I built it out of wood and Bondo and covered it with high build polyester primer and sanded it down to a flawless finish, and then painted it with Emeron and cut and buffed that to a flawless finish and covered it with about 15 coats of mold release wax, and then started building this mold on top of it. Now, I would work, this looks like a 20-footer. I would work on a mold like that for about 6 months, sanding and building and sanding. And the heat generated building this mold, which could get up to 250 degrees, would destroy this. We got one chance. And after building it, working on it for 6 months or so, you'd build one mold and then you'd destroy this. You'd cut it up and throw it away. Now, this is just a 20-footer. The biggest one I built was 30 feet long, 10 feet wide, 8 feet deep. That's as big as a small mobile home, from scratch, out of wood, polished to a mirror, flawless finish, and then build a mold off of it. Now y'all, my biggest sanding block was 12 inches wide, 6 feet long, had 4 handles. It took 2 men to run it. When you hand me a little tiny sanding block like this, that's a baby tool. That's what I used to do finish work, not to do big work. When you talk to me about doing something like this car, that's a little tiny surface to me to work on. Man, I cut and buffed a small mobile home, basically. This is nothing. I know about sanding blocks. This little tiny thing right here, they're foam blocks. I've been using 3M Durablocks since they invented them. These pictures were taken back in the 1990s. I did this for about 15 years. This little tiny thing in the marine industry about don't have any use for it at all, but it's what I use on these little tiny parts to do my cutting. And it depends on your cutting, your sandpaper, what you start with in grit totally is dictated by what kind of surface you're working with. So on something like this that's just one color, no graphics, I'll start with like 2,000 grit. If I was working on a graphic paint job that had a lot of build, a lot of layers, then I might start with 800 grit. I might even clear it again. But if there's any of y'all out there that think you could teach me anything about pushing sandpaper, hit me up, let me know. I'm willing to learn.